come on, come on, come on. I got this. I got this. I need this hit. I need this hit. Does a natural 1 hit?
Well, actually, you throw yourself with such force that you throw your sword directly into the back of your cleric's head.
Mm-hmm. I see. Oh, fuck. Oh, shit. Shit. How's it hanging, everybody? My name is Dead Fox. Welcome back to the Dead Fox and Dragons channel. Today, we're going to be going over some dungeon and encounter building tips from a first-time DM. So hopefully I can pave your way a little bit easier to starting your first campaign. Stop. Wait, if you haven't seen my previous video, how to run a homebrew D&D campaign as a first-time DM, please go check that out before you come to this video. That is going to explain a lot of stuff before you get here, and it's a lot of integral stuff that you guys are going to need before we get to this part of the video. You went and watched it? Okay, cool. So, now that we're back, this video is going to cover dungeon and encounter building tips. We're going to go through another process on how I've done it before and how I think you guys can too, and I've made it as simple as possible. So, sit back, grab some popcorn, enjoy the show. Okay, so first things first, we are going to go over the 6 steps that you need to build a dungeon. I know I like the number 6 a lot. I don't know why, but step 1, you're going to want to identify your boss and your boss room. So kind of like the way that you want the boss arena to feel. My D&D campaign is all about cultists and this prophecy and the whole thing. So my bosses are mostly cultists, right? Like cult leaders, that kind of thing. So in one of the boss rooms that we've done previously, it was a like meeting hall. There were banners of the cult flown all around the meeting hall. There was sacrificial altars. There were tables and like a bunch of stuff just built in, specifically themed around the cult. So the whole dungeon, the first dungeon that my players ever ran through, was completely a cult theme. You want to kind of carry that theme all the way through the dungeon, and then especially in the boss room, that's where you want your theme to be the most prominent. So that's step 1, identify your boss room and your boss. Step 2, identify the rooms of the dungeon. What kind of stuff do you want to have in here? Do you want to have like a storage room? Do you want to have like a giant banquet hall? Do you want to have an armory? Do you want to have like a smithing area? Like, when you're putting these together, you kind of want to get the idea of that theme throughout the whole dungeon. Step 3, identify the enemy type. If this is a dungeon all about the occult and you have a bunch of random like bears and wolves in there, it's going to be a little different, right? You want to kind of, again, theme. You want to carry that theme throughout the whole dungeon. You don't want to have one room filled with fairies and then another room filled with like normal dudes. The other part of the list is traps. You kind of want to identify what rooms you want your traps in, where you want your traps to be, what kind of traps do you want to have? Do you want to have a giant pitfall trap? Do you want to have arrows fly through the wall? Do you want to have a giant wrecking ball come out of the ceiling and slam your party in the face? Number 5 is loot and lore. So you can't have a dungeon without it having loot. That's kind of the point of a dungeon. The other side of that coin is you actually want to have the dungeon mean something. I get it. Meaninglessly running through a dungeon and just cutting down any enemy you can get your hands on and stealing all the money and all the stuff is fun. You just want to have it mean something. As much as I want to just have my players run through a dungeon and get all the money they want, I have to make it tie back in somehow. Now that we've covered all of that, we're going to get into the actual building. So here is that list that we just talked about. So this is all of the stuff that we were just talking about in our list. So we have our boss room and boss, we have our rooms, our enemies, traps, our loot and lore, and then wrapping up. That part we're going to talk about at the very end, so stay with me here. First things first, get a pencil and paper, or you can open up MS Paint. MS Paint is an application that I've actually used quite frequently to build Dungeons and Dragons dungeons. Like, I have a couple that I can't show them here. My players might watch my videos. There's a couple of different ways you can do this. My favorite way to do it is on MS Paint, or if you have a Remarkable tablet, this is one of those things that I bought for D&D that I have specifically loved building my worlds and my characters in. They're expensive, but they are super cool. It's basically just a tablet that you can draw in. It's an electronic ink display, so it's not a big screen and it's not super bright. If I'm not using my tablet, I'm using MS Paint. So we're gonna get into it. As far as the theme for this dungeon, we're gonna continue this in Notepad. So the theme, we are going to go with, let's say, undead. Boss, Lich. Lich. Enemy type. Shades. Skeletons. Zombies. Loot. Weapons. and gold. Lore. This is kind of a part you can choose how to do. For my campaign specifically, in the first dungeon, what I ended up giving them is a piece of a map that they had never seen before. So I gave them a map with some cult locations on it because it's a cult dungeon. So we have kind of like a rough idea of what we want the dungeon to look like. Now the fun part is actually putting it together. My favorite method in actually like building a dungeon map, and this is kind of an integral part, at least from my party, is to have a map of what we're looking at so people can kind of get an idea. And I have it all built out on a map that we use on the table. I'll have some pictures kind of scattered throughout this video. What I really like to do is kind of have an idea of the size of the rooms, the shape of the rooms, and what different pathways connect to what. So we're going to make a big square here, like a kind of rounded, not rounded, an angled square. So yeah, that's the boss room. That's what we're going to call it. So we go in, boss room. How many rooms do we want to have? My favorite way to find out. We're gonna have a total of 7 rooms. We've already got 1. In my humble opinion, I like to build the dungeons from top to bottom, which means the boss room all the way to the entrance. We'll put a square here and we'll put a circle here. That's 2 rooms. Easy. And then we'll connect them with 2 hallways. The big thing we want to do as DMs, especially as new DMs, is give our players options. In the first dungeon that we did in our D&D campaign, my players didn't touch 3 of the rooms until the very end. It's kind of cool to give them options because they could have also just never touched those rooms and never found any of the stuff in there, which is totally up to them. Start drawing random shapes and see what lines up. So we'll put like a big room right here. And the cool thing with this is this gives us 4 total points of entry for this room. Actually more. So 4 points of ingress, egress, however you want to do it. The way that I treat these dungeons when I'm making them is literally just make as many entrances as you possibly can without making it a giant maze. You want to think of different ways that people can get in and out of this room. The other way we can do it is by connecting the rooms here, or we can not connect that room to this, and we can connect this to a whole different hallway. There's infinite possibilities here. What we're going to do is I'm going to leave this room as its own little section away from this room, but we're going to connect it with another hallway to another room. So we're going to make it a little offshoot room like right here. A little bit of a longer hallway. That gives us 5, right? So we need 2 more rooms. And what I'm going to do with that is I'm going to make 1 here, and we'll put 1 in between these 2, and we'll make it long like this. We'll connect the large room to the small room. This room here. We'll do this room to here. And we will do this room to here. Enter here. Final room here. But you want to have multiple ways to get down to that boss room, right? So we have path 1 that goes up and in. We have path 2. There we go. And then that technically goes to path 3. Yeah, so there are multiple different ways to get through this room. Really what you want to make sure of is that most rooms have at least 2 entrances, right? So this room over here could be entered from this room. So you could enter this room here from here, right? Because of this hallway. But you could also never enter this room at all. The players can completely avoid it. And that could be completely possible. But there is always at least 2 paths into that room. To this room, however, there are only 2 entrances. This room here, we have 3. What do we want the entrance of an undead style dungeon to be, other than a crypt? I'm just kidding, we're gonna make it a crypt. What is in a crypt? Sarcophagi, dead people, maybe an altar. The first encounter in this dungeon is a crypt. There can be some sort of like magical artifact on an altar in the center of the crypt. So let's put altar. So we'll call altar. Altar. And then there's this holy artifact right here. Let's call it a holy dagger, right? Now the DM in me is like, hey, if they touch that dagger, everything in the crypt wakes up. D for dagger. Let's say there are a bunch of sarcophagi lining this crypt. If someone goes and picks up that shiny dagger on that altar, all of the skeletons come out of the sarcophagi and start attacking. This room over here, the smallest room, is a room full of loot. Loot. Main room here. In Skyrim, there is a couple of dungeons that have like large open rooms that are like banquet halls, and even like some of the undead themed dungeons in Skyrim have like a large banquet hall. Let's just make this a banquet hall. The banquet hall is a nice filler room that I like to use. In a banquet hall in an undead dungeon, probably what I would do, huge table, lots of chairs, every other chair, there's just a skeleton sitting in it. Get the shit out of here. Anyway. So every once in a while, dead guy. If the players like sit down and take a bite of food, all of the corpses in the room, just all of the skeletons come back and fight them. For this room, I would do a storage room. Call it storage. Storage. What we'll do, just to keep our players on their toes, is we'll put a chest here. That chest, once opened, let's say this, that chest, once it's been opened, what will happen is nothing will be inside the chest and an axe will fly out of the side of the wall. And then here we can have like a bunch of barrels lining the walls that are like broken into and open. That's a weird barrel. What we want to do in these rooms is like build out the general idea, so the encounter, quote unquote, and then we flesh out everything else. So the banquet hall, the idea was a banquet hall filled with skeletons, right? The encounter is if the players decide to sit down, take food, or interact with the table in any way, a skeleton will like grab their hand and start another fight. So the enemy in this room is the greed. Oh yeah, that's a good, is greed. Greed, that'll be the enemy there. The loot room, trap everything. Put everything under some sort of trap. If there's like a big chest in there, trap it. If there's like barrels or like, you know, the Indiana Jones like idol where he swaps it out with the pouch, do something like that. In one of the earliest dungeons we ran, I had them run through a hallway that was booby trapped with pressure plates and arrows, the classic. So you could do that. You could do like giant axes swinging back and forth like in Skyrim. You can put small encounters in the hallways, like you run into 3 skeletons and a rat, you know, some stuff like that. Let's move on to these top 2 rooms. What I would want to do in this scenario is kind of start alluding to the fact that there is like some really weird undead sorcery going on, because a lich is literally just undead sorcerer. Liches are immortal spellcasters that have bound their soul to something called a phylactery, right? And a phylactery is an object that, as long as the phylactery remains intact, the lich can live forever. The gears are turning. What I would do with this room is I would make it an alchemy room. And what I would do is have a bunch of some drawings for a phylactery and some ideas, like some notes and sketches. So it's kind of like alluding to a lich. So this last room, I'm going to make it an armory. Armory room for me is kind of like the banquet hall. It's just one of those things that I can use as, quote, filler. That is just kind of a room that will fit into most any dungeon. But I would fill it with, you know, a couple of undead, some rusted armor, possibly have them fight some like possessed armor type thing. This is a fully built out dungeon that I built in 30 minutes. And then I would go back in, add some more lore. Maybe the lich is like a former spellcaster of renown in the town that they started in, or like the city that they're starting in or playing in currently. Decided that he didn't want to die and carved out this whole dungeon into a cave. This could be like underground in a cave system. This could be like in a basement of a mansion, right? Like this, you know, you could put this kind of format anywhere. Let's refer back to our list and see how we did. Our list here, boss rooms. So we got rooms, we got 7 rooms, we got enemy type, we got traps, We have loot and some lore drops, that alchemy room with the phylactery stuff. And then we have wrapping up. So wrapping up on this and going back into this dungeon. So let's just say for the Lich part, if we want to go back in and dive some more lore into it, let's just say the Lich was like a renowned spellcaster in town. Super charitable guy. And then one day out of nowhere, someone like screwed him over. And let's just say he owed some money to some people. Those people killed his family, right? So he decides, yeah, fuck you guys, and kills everyone. Just kills the whole town, crashes out on everybody, and then just flees off to the mountains to discover how to become immortal and how to resurrect the dead, right? His experiments go horribly wrong, and he creates this undead army. So he has to live the rest of his days inside of a cave, right? And he decides to try to recreate his family and friends with all of his undead buddies in this banquet hall, continuing his experiments on the undead in the alchemy room, armoring his army of the dead in his armory, and, you know, the crypts to his family and friends, and then where he keeps all of his stuff. More where he keeps all of his stuff. I really hope you guys enjoyed the video. If you did, I'd really appreciate a like and comment down below, just letting me know what you thought about the video. If you're feeling even more generous, go ahead and sub down below. And I wanted to take a little bit of time to say thank you guys so much for the support that I've gotten on this channel. There's 200 views on my first full video in less than 48 hours. I really appreciate that support from you guys. There's plenty more to come. As always, hang loose. We'll see you in the next one.